Right, hello and welcome back to another video. So it's been a while since I've done a top 10, top 15 video. So yeah, I'm back with another top 15 video. I put up a poll quite a few months ago now asking what people wanted to see, and there was only a couple of votes, but the two votes were both for my most underrated games. So this is going to be my top 15 underrated games. It's mainly focusing on fairly modern games. I might do another one in the future kind of focusing on retro games, but I think this video will be quite useful because definitely in this modern age there's a lot of video games that release, get absolutely bombed, destroyed in the review period, and then after a while they either sort themselves out or just kind of the view wasn't generally kind on them at the time, but they're actually really good games, or they sort themselves out and become really good games. So I'm going to be, this is obviously subjective, but there is some kind of objectivity to it that I'm basing the games I'm going to run through, I'm going to base it on what their Metacritic score was. So in all these cases, I believe their Metacritic score is far too low, and I think they are very underrated games. So I've got physical copies of some of these, some of them are digital, but I'll put up gameplay for all of these as well. So let's get started. I have mentioned this in a few of my videos. I should have put these in the right order, shouldn't I? Yeah, you'll also know if you've watched before that my backdrop has changed. So it's the same room. It's just this is kind of one of the monitors I work and game on. So before it was facing that way, but I've faced it this way, which is where the majority of my game collection is. I'm sat in like a tight little corner in between my desk and the wall, but I think it makes a better backdrop. So I'm here for now. So the first game is Spec Ops The Line. So I have spoken about this quite a few times on the channel. It is, so I get the glare off it. It is an incredibly good game, and when it came out it had quite a high Metacritic score of 76, but in my opinion this is kind of a 9 or a 10 out of 10 game. I think 76 does it in service. I think it's a far better game than that. And I should say as well, I'm starting at 15, going down to 1 in order of not how good the game I think the game is, but in order of Metacritic score. So 76 will be the highest, and we'll keep dropping as we go. So yeah, watch my top 15 Xbox 360 videos, games of all time video if you want more information on this. But this is a third-person shooter set in Dubai, very competent third-person shooter, but the best thing about it is the story. And I won't say too much more about it than that because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but trust me, play this game any way you can. It's worth the price of admission, and I don't think it's very expensive. When I bought this it was £4. I don't know if it's still the same price, but it's definitely worth playing. It's got so many good aspects to it. It's got levolution, like sand, because it's in Dubai in the desert. It's got levolution in terms of kind of sandstorms come through, and if you're in a skyscraper or something on the lower floors, a dust storm will come through, smash the windows, and completely cover the inside of a skyscraper in sand, and it just completely changes the layout of the level and kind of what you use as cover and things. Yeah, it's a very decent shooter and a very good story. Definitely recommend playing it. Next up, we have No Man's Sky. So I know, I didn't play this on release, but I know at release it got slated for not delivering on the promise that Hello Games had promised. It didn't have a lot of the features I said it was going to have. I think it was quite buggy at launch, and it basically just didn't meet expectations. So it got kind of slated in the reviews, and it got a, well, it currently is, I think it's probably edged up since then, but it's currently a 71 on Metacritic. Again, not so much, I mean, Spec Ops The Line was great on release. I played this about 18 months after it released, and I've gone back to it kind of once a year since, because it is now an incredible game. I haven't played it in over a year, so I think it's got even more stuff now than it did last time I played it. But it's such a well-designed, well-made game to scratch that space exploration itch. That, I mean, this was in the original game, but that first feeling you have when you manage to leave your first planet, where you start, you fix up your ship, you leave your planet, and then that kind of sense of freedom of where am I going to go now, the universe is my oyster kind of thing, the kind of base building, the exploration, I just love it. It's one of those games you get sucked into You say you're going to play it for an hour, 5 hours later you're still there, and then weeks and weeks and weeks later you're still there, still playing it. It's such a good game, and they've added so many features. So if you've looked at Metacritic and seen that 71 and thought, oh, it's a so-so game, trust me, I think this is kind of like a 9 out of 10 game now. It's definitely worth playing. Next up, we have Battlefield Hardline. So I thought this was a great game right from the beginning. I bought this on release. I was really excited for another Battlefield game. I love the Battlefield series. It did take quite a big departure from kind of that core Battlefield. I think it came after Battlefield 3 and then Battlefield 4. I think it was a bit of a shock to people. But effectively, it's you play as a cop, a police officer, a detective, and instead of kind of saving the world and battling terrorists and things, you're kind of it's a one ongoing story, but you're fighting crime. Basically, it's kind of a much more condensed, focused story. But I really enjoyed it. I thought, as long as you go into the game knowing that it's not that huge, big, open, like kind of World War Battlefield game, I think there's a lot of enjoyment to be had here. They bring in a lot of different mechanics. So there's stealth mechanics, there's kind of interrogation, and you can kind of arrest people and that type of thing. So it's very, very different to the previous Battlefield games. But I think it's very, very much worth a play. And the other thing I loved about it was the multiplayer. I didn't mind at all that it didn't have kind of fighter jets and tanks and things coming through. Because yes, I enjoy them in the core Battlefield games, but sometimes they can get a bit frustrating. And I don't think I'm the only person, but if you're not kind of an ace fighter pilot or always willing to sit in a queue and wait for the tanks, it can get a bit frustrating constantly being taken out by jets and tanks. And this entire game basically it did have some vehicles in there and some helicopters, but most of the game was basically infantry combat, which I really appreciated and really enjoyed. I think it actually led to some of the best kind of long gameplay sessions I've had in a Battlefield game. I put a lot of time into this game, and it's actually one of the few Battlefields where I became competent in flying a helicopter. I actually, because there wasn't such a queue for it in this one, because they weren't as effective, I actually got into a helicopter and flew them a bit more often. I actually enjoyed the helicopter kind of flying and combat in this as well. But yeah, definitely recommend it. It's a 71 on Metacritic. Again, I'd say I still think that Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 are better games, but I still enjoyed this a huge amount, and I think this for me is better than some of the more recent ones we've had, such as kind of the ones where we went with Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. I really enjoyed this, so yeah, give it a go. Next up, at number 12, we have, this got absolutely destroyed at release, Mass Effect Andromeda. So again, I think this is a case of not living up to expectations. Coming off the back of the Mass Effect trilogy, which was incredible. I've played through, I've completed Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. I missed the first one, and I've gone back and I've started playing through that kind of in the past year or so, but I've yet to finish it. But I have experienced the original Mass Effect trilogy, and yeah, hands down, that is an incredible series of games. And I think people had a different expectation from Mass Effect Andromeda to what it actually turned out to be, and it was a buggy mess at the start. But I really, really enjoyed it. I loved that aspect of going out and setting up and colonising new worlds. I loved the story that was running through it. I thought the combat was really good. The combat, in my opinion, is better than it was in the original Mass Effect trilogy. And I just had a really good time with the game. I played it before watching any reviews. I didn't want anything spoiled. Played through, completed it, had a really good time. And then once I'd finished it, kind of went and looked at reviews. And I was actually quite surprised at how destroyed it got in reviews. So Mass Effect, again, we're on a bit of a theme here. 71 again, so the last 3 games have all been 71. And I would easily put this game at an 8 or a 9. Kind of 80 or 90 Metacritic, somewhere in the 80s. So if you are someone that has been put off from playing it, I recommend giving it a go. It's a very good game. It's incredibly cheap now, and you get kind of 30 hours of solid gameplay for your price of entry. So I'd definitely give it a go. Next up, this is severely underrated, and I have seen a few channels saying the same thing actually, and that is Mad Max. So this is an open world kind of combat game, mixture of car combat and on foot combat, set in the Mad Max universe. So it's a lot of desert and rocky kind of mountainous escapes and things like that. So there's no vegetation or anything, so it's quite sparse. But I think in a way I found that kind of really kind of quite beautiful, quite incredible. And it was different to a lot of the other games that are around. So I really enjoyed my time with this, driving around. The story's okay, it's a Mad Max story, so there's nothing groundbreaking there. But where the enjoyment comes is in the car combat, and the combat when you're on foot is actually pretty decent as well. It's kind of like the Batman Arkham series, so kind of like counters and combos and things. But yeah, just a really good, solid game. The activities you do around the world, you can do convoys, you can do kind of trying to take down enemy convoys, races, and the upgrade system for your car. You get really attached to your car, as you might expect from a Mad Max game, and as you level up and get crafting resources and things, you can add weapons and defences to your car that make a huge difference. And it's exciting every time you kind of get to go into combat with a new upgrade or something to see how it performs. But yeah, I had a great time. More so in this than a lot of games, I was doing a lot of the kind of side activities, just the basic simple ones, just because I really enjoyed travelling through the world, seeing what they had to offer. So yeah, this was a 69 on Metacritic, which honestly I think is a travesty. I don't really understand how people would rate it that low, but that's kind of mainstream games media for you. Again, I'd give this easily in the 80s. I can't recommend it strongly enough. It's a cheap game. You've got nothing to lose. Pick it up. Well, you'll see gameplay anyway. But yeah, definitely give it a go. Next one I don't have a physical copy of, but that is World War Z, which is the recent, well, fairly recent, probably 2 or 3 years ago now, kind of zombie survival game based on the book World War Z. And this got a 67 on Metacritic, and I really don't understand this, which will be a running theme through this video, surprisingly. And I played this at release, so it's not like it was bugs or anything or glitches that got those review scores, unless I just got lucky and didn't get any of them. But this is a really competent kind of zombie survival game. I imagine quite similar to the Left 4 Dead series, but I haven't played them, so I can't really say. But you're making your way through levels, so it's not just a stay in place defending yourself, though there are parts of the missions that are that, but you're making your way through an area, through a city or through somewhere normally to get to a destination. And at times you will have to stop and defend yourself. But it's really competent, and one of the biggest selling features of this, which you'll see from the footage, is the hordes. There's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of zombies on screen, all coming at you, and the spectacle is amazing. It looks really good. It's so satisfying to kind of set up a position and take out all these people. And I can't speak to how it performs solo, because I played it co-op with, I can't remember what the max number of players is, whether it's 3 or 4, but we got a group of us and we had the max number of people you could have, and it was so fun, so engaging. We had such a good time playing through this. And there's different, as in the World War Z book, which is kind of like a series of accounts of this zombie apocalypse told from different perspectives around the world. This game jumps to different places and you play as different characters in each mission in a different location. So there's a lot of variety there as well. We had an amazing time with this game. Such a like a classic fun game. There's not much depth to it, though you can upgrade weapons and things, but story-wise there's not a huge amount of depth. It's just a really good kind of co-op, shoot a load of zombies, have a laugh, have a good time kind of game. Next up, Rage 2. So this had a Metacritic score, or has a Metacritic score of, what am I doing? 67. Which, yeah, again, it's far too low. I have to admit I haven't actually beaten this yet, but I am a good 15 hours in. But I've been doing a lot of kind of like the side missions and things and just messing around generally. But the combat in this game is really surprised me. I didn't play Rage 1, though I do have it up there somewhere on the Xbox 360. The combat in this game is amazing. It's really, really good. It's kind of like Doom-like in the way that you have to be aggressive and you can move quite quickly and jump and traverse and get right in amongst the action and enemies. You've got amazing weaponry, there's kind of powers and things you can use. The combat is really, really good. The story, the story's not great, but the open world I find engaging and quite interesting. It's not the best open world that I've ever seen, but it's perfectly functional, and there's some really nice areas of it and nice views and nice places, kind of interest. There's not many nice places in the game because it's kind of apocalyptic. There's a lot of interesting places to explore. And yeah, was very, very pleasantly surprised by this game. This is one that I got a lot later. As you can see, I got it for £3, so it's kind of a few years after release. Went in without huge expectations, but I just kind of like this style of games, so I wanted to give it a go, and was blown away. The main selling point is the combat. The combat in this is really, really solid. So even if the story to you isn't kind of the most important thing, if you're happy to play a game just for really good kind of gameplay, combat, then I'd definitely give it a go. As I say, it got 67 Metacritic, and again, I think this is one that deserves to be in the 80s easily. Next up, so I actually don't have any more physical copies now, so it's all digital, is Star Wars Battlefront 2. So this is another story of not a great release. The EA doing their thing of getting incredibly greedy with microtransactions, making it pay to win, locking things behind paywalls, and it literally was a case that if you came into the game at the start and you were willing to spend the money, you could spend hundreds of pounds and unlock everything and have a huge advantage in the multiplayer. And it did kind of ruin the game at the start. I did play the game straight away. I wasn't willing to spend any more money on kind of upgrades or anything, so I played the whole thing organically, and I fell off after about a week at the start because I was just getting dicked on constantly, and it was so frustrating. But since then, they've kind of learnt their lesson. Everything in the game is now free from the start. So all of the heroes, all of the villains, so all of the characters you could want to play as, they're all free. I think you still have to upgrade your weapons and things as far as I'm aware, but I jumped into this game a little while ago now, probably it was sometime last year, like 2022. I jumped back in to see what all the fuss was about, kind of all of these new unlocks, and I had a solid kind of 3-month period of just this was my main multiplayer game, just playing this several times a week, and absolutely loved it. So yeah, it got a Metacritic score, to be fair, fairly at the time. If you take all of the crappy stuff that EA did in terms of pay to win at the time, it had a Metacritic score of 66. But now that all of that's gone, the base game, even at the start, if you took out the pay to win stuff, the game itself was still amazing, and was still probably kind of 80s or 90s Metacritic. But now it's all free, all of the characters and everything. This is easily a kind of 80, 90 Metacritic. It's such a good game, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, it's just such a competent shooter. The sound design in this game is incredible. It's so good. I don't know the names of all the names of the actual Star Wars official names, but like when you chuck grenades and things and they kind of detonate, and it makes such good sounds. There's such good sound design in this game. So yeah, definitely recommend giving that a go if you haven't already. Next up is Need for Speed, so the rebooted one in 2015. So this is the one that was set entirely at night, which I, to start with, was a bit unsure about, and it had live action cutscenes, so actual people acting, not kind of animations. And I loved this game. I thought it was really good. So it was either, I don't think Game Pass was out at the time, so maybe it was with Games with Gold or something, but I got access to it for free somehow, and I thought, why not give it a go, and absolutely loved it. I got really into the drifting mechanics of the game. I'm not often that into drifting, but just the setting of the game and the winding mountain roads kind of lent itself to that, and obviously a lot of the stories around that. But I just found the physics and the car handling of this game were done so well that I found it quite easy to drift and found it really satisfying. So I was modding out my cars and doing all of that, and I actually really enjoyed the live action cutscenes. Yes, it's a bit cheesy. I think if you go into it, it's like the mindset of if you want to go and watch like a kind of really cheap budget B movie where you know it's not going to be great, but you're going to get some enjoyment from it and you're going to have a laugh from it. It's that kind of kind of situation. And I 100%ed this game. I did everything you could in this game, got the 1,000 gamer score, and really enjoyed my time. So again, this was a 66, which I don't understand how some of these games are reviewed. As I say, you could knock it down maybe on like the voice acting and things, and maybe that it's kind of only set at night and things, but visually it looks amazing. The physics of the car handling and everything were really good, so I'm not sure how it got such a low score. But yeah, definitely recommend this one. Right, now we have an infamous one, which is Anthem. So this was not received well on release, and to be honest, I don't know if it's any better now. I got it on release with the group of friends that I play regularly with. We all got it on release, and I enjoyed it. I think it's a good game. So it got a 65 on Metacritic. So this isn't the same as the others where I think it's like a 90. It's like incredible, but I don't believe it deserves a 65. I had a huge amount of fun with this game. It basically is an Iron Man simulator. If you've ever wanted to play a really good Iron Man game, play this game. I found the world they created kind of fascinating and really incredible. The graphics were stunning. The gunplay felt really good. It's a really good co-op game because you can be one of you can be like a tanky kind of person, one of you can be kind of a healer type person. So the synergies there with co-op's really good. They did drop the ball in a few places. There were some periods during the campaign that was kind of like repetitive, busybody missions, just to kind of for padding to kind of lengthen the story. And there were some things that from the trailers and from the way it's going, you'd expect to be able to do like massive battles and things, and certain aspects that you would expect to be able to play out, but they were cutscenes in the end. But still, if you go in with the right expectations, it's like a pretty decent story. There's some amazing combat in there. There are some really decent kind of bosses and raids that you can do. It's a really good game. It's definitely not a 65 Metacritic, put it that way. I think it's easily in the 70s, and for me, probably an 8 out of 10. So yeah, definitely worthwhile playing. Next one. So this one I only got reminded of recently when I saw it was just completely free. Not Games of Gold, not like Game Pass, just for some reason they're just giving it out for free on Xbox. Is Too Human. So this is a game on the Xbox 360. And my memory of this is I played this way back in uni, and it's one of those games because I was kind of a skint student. It was on like Amazon or something for like £2 or £3, so I just bought it. Had no idea what it was, and really enjoyed my playthrough. It's not like the highest quality game of all time, but you can tell there is some budget there, especially for the time. There's a bit of jankiness in there, but I thought the combat was really fun. I have to admit, I can't 100% remember the story now, but I have fond memories of this game. I know that at the time I really enjoyed it and really enjoyed the story. I played through it a couple of times, and I was just looking for this video, looking through games that I completed and looking at the Metacritic score, and I saw that it's got a 65. I was like, come on, what are you doing to this game? So maybe there is a bit of nostalgia in this. I played the first half an hour just to probably 15-20 minutes to capture some game footage, and there's nothing in that first 15-20 minutes that made me think that it wasn't a decent game. So yeah, I think I'd recommend this game. I'd give it a go. Again, my memories of it are amazing, so maybe I do need to do a complete full playthrough again to see if it still holds up. But I think this is a really good game. We're getting to the tail end now, into the number 4 position, and we have another racing game. This time, The Crew 2. So The Crew 1, I kind of didn't really get into. There wasn't much to do from a solo perspective. I went in there. I didn't have any mates or anything playing it. I just went to see what it's about, and I fell off it quite quickly because it was, perhaps not unsurprisingly, revolved very much around driving multiplayer in a crew. I'm happy to say The Crew 2, I watched some reviews some gameplay footage and stuff before I started playing it. You can very much play it solo. And this got a Metacritic score of 64, which is very much doing it a disservice. But effectively what the Crew 2 is it's the entire, well, it's not one-to-one, but the map is the entire United States, but obviously condensed down to make it gamified. And it takes you about 45 minutes to drive from one side of the US to the other. So it's a big open world map. But what I loved about it is there's different areas. So they have like the major cities, and they have some of the major national parks and things like Yosemite and Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon and those type of things. So as you're driving around, you won't just have masses of open spaces. You'll have a little bit of open space, and then you'll come into like the next major kind of feature of that area of the country. So I thought just the interest of driving around was incredible, and the variety of races and things you can do is really good. So it's not just driving, there's boat racing, there's like plane racing, there's like monster trucks and what they're called, like airboats and that type of thing. So there's loads and loads of different disciplines you can race in, and it goes all the way through to kind of like formula cars as well. The physics are not like the best. When I first started playing it, I was a bit like unsure on the physics because it didn't feel as tight as like a Forza or anything like that. But I have to say, once I'd got used to it after a few hours of playing, I was used to it. I didn't have an issue with it at all. And this is another one of those games I played through. I haven't 100%ed it because there's so much to do in the game, but I played through to completion, rolled credits, had a really good time in this game. And yeah, 64 I think is just is harsh. Yeah, again, I'd put this 70s, 80s, probably high 70s. It's not like an incredible game. It's not up there with Forzas and things, but I'd say this is definitely a game that if you like Forza Horizon, those types of games, and you've run out, you've got bored of Forza Horizon, or you've fully completed it and you're looking for another game to play, I definitely recommend this. I imagine it's very cheap now as well, so it's worth picking up and yeah, having a bit of fun with. Right, top 3 underrated games. So this is very much a game that has improved over time, and that is Battlefield 2042, so the second Battlefield on this list, which got a Metacritic rating of 64, which on release I think is very much deserved. I was very excited for this game. I love the Battlefield series. I jumped in at launch, luckily with the EA 10-hour free trial thing, and I didn't finish my 10-hour trial. I fell off it after about 4 or 5 hours. I wasn't having a good time with it. I didn't click with it. The map design I didn't think was that good. There was something about the game that just didn't feel very good. It didn't feel great to play. So I fell off it. And then since then, they've done loads and loads of updates. And this is another one similar to Star Wars Battlefront that I jumped back on. I think it was last year as well, and I've been playing it this year. No, it was the start of this year. I jumped back in because I'd heard they'd done all these updates, and it's a completely different game. Completely different. They've gone back to the traditional Battlefield thing of having classes, like your engineer, your assault, your recon. They got rid of all the characters, and they've redesigned, like tweaked loads of the maps to make them more playable, like because there wasn't enough cover. One of the things I didn't like about it when it releases, I die so often, and I'm not normally that bad a player, but you just didn't have cover. So you'd be running trying to take an objective, and you'd just be in the open, just get sniped or killed, and it just happened over and over again, and again and again. I just got so frustrated with the game. But they fixed most of that anyway. If not, there's always some of that in a Battlefield game, in any shooter game, but it's a lot better than it was. And yeah, they've tweaked a lot of the maps. They're far better designed now. The gunplay, I don't know if they have done anything to the gunplay, but it feels better anyway. And just having all the classes and things back, it's a much better game, hands down, than it was on release. And I think this is quite widely known. There's been a lot of videos and things on it, but I think this is definitely now, based on the Metacritic score it had when it released of 64, very much an underrated game. This is now a bona fide, decent Battlefield game, kind of like 80s, 90s kind of score. I can't fault too much on it now. The only thing you could fault is if you don't really like the setting and the vehicles and things that they've got in there, but it's a very good game. It doesn't have a single player campaign either, which is a downside for it, but if you're just there for the multiplayer, it's pretty decent. Another one, now this is ridiculous, and I can only assume this is from when the game kind of initially released and didn't have many features, and that is Warframe. So Warframe, for those that don't know, is kind of like Destiny. If people play Destiny, like an MMO RPG, like raids and leveling up your characters, unlocking weapons, replaying the same levels kind of multiple times, and kind of just leveling up all your gear and all that kind of stuff to take on newer bosses and different levels and that type of thing. But it got a 62 on Metacritic on Ryse, and I think that's purely down to, it must be down to the features it had, because I played it originally when it had only been out, when it first came to Xbox, which was on the Xbox One days, and I think even then it had still been around for a couple of years before it came to the Xbox, and it was quite feature light, and put it down. I came back to it a couple of years later and got my mates into it because I was just playing it. I was like, this game is incredible, how do more people not know about this game? Got my mates in and we were addicted, like 6 months or more. This was the only game that I was playing multiplayer wise. Some of my friends got even more addicted than me. Some of my friends have like literally 100 days gameplay time in this game. It's so addictive. The combat feels really good. You get different frames, which are like combat suits that you can wear, and hence where the name Warframe comes from. Each of these has different powers and different abilities, so you're constantly trying to get the rewards to unlock new frames for you to use and grind for new weapons and that type of thing. And some of the bosses are kind of really well done, and you unlock new planets that you can go to take on different missions. They are constantly developing and upgrading this game, and the period I was playing it in was quite a few years ago. Since then they've kind of added kind of open world areas to the game and done all sorts. I don't know, I haven't gone back to it. I probably should do, but it's so daunting now that I'm so far behind. It's kind of, I'd have to dedicate so much time to it, I don't know if I can. But from what I hear, they haven't kind of ruined it, and I think it's only got better with more options and everything. So for when I was playing this is like one of my best games. This is easily in the 90s in Metacritic for me. It's such a good game, and to be rated 62 is just an atrocity. So if you are looking for kind of like a Destiny style game, I haven't played many MMO RPGs, so apologies if Destiny is not the best example, but I'm a console gamer, so there's not many MMO RPGs on the consoles. But yeah, definitely play Warframe. It's a great game. And finally, number one underrated game, in my opinion, and obviously bear in mind that I have to have played these games, so I can't judge every game out there, is Ryse, Son of Rome, which was a launch exclusive on the Xbox One. And this got 60, which is, yeah, I don't understand that either. So I played this many years after it came out, and thought it was a really good game. So it's kind of like a Roman kind of hand-to-hand combat game, action adventure combat game. The graphics still look incredible in terms of visuals. It's a really good looking game. The combat is quite simple but really satisfying, and it's functional, like it feels good. The inputs all feel good. It's like a nice competent fighting game, and the story I thought was really enjoyable. So yeah, 60 for this is just ridiculous. It's easily an 8 out of 10 game for me. I had a great time with it. Great story, great combat, great graphics. It's good. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. As I say, at some point in the future, if this video does well or if people want to see it, I probably will do kind of another underrated games for older generations, because this was obviously mainly focused on Xbox One onwards, with a couple of 360 games thrown in there. But yeah, if people want to see it, I'll do one for older games as well. So what are your underrated games? Do you agree? Firstly, do you agree with the ones that I've put, or do you think some of these are trash? Because everyone's entitled to their opinion, and maybe I'm just an outlier in a lot of these. Maybe there's a reason they've got the Metacritic scores that they do. But also, yeah, what games do you think are underrated? Because I have to say, even though I've made this list, there are games that I'll look at, and it will have look at in terms of thinking of buying, especially with the Xbox 360. Because that's like my main console that I'm collecting for at the moment. And if I see that it's got like a Metacritic score of 50, then I'm far less likely to buy it. And it does make me think I probably would enjoy quite a few of those lower rated games. So if anyone has any they think that I'd enjoy, that you think are underrated, yeah, please let me know in the comments. So thank you for watching. Please consider dropping a like and subscribing if you've enjoyed the video. And for now, on to the next one.